That's what I like to hear before introducing you to some of my absolute favorite people in this business. We are kicking it off with our fight coordinator, Donley. Please welcome executive producer, writer, and director, Hayden Schlossberg. We have executive producer, writer, and director, Josh Heald. Executive producer, writer, and director, John Hurwitz. Please welcome to the stage, it's Demetri, Gianni, DeCenzo. We also have Tanner Buchanan, who plays Robby. Please welcome Samantha LaRusso herself, Mary Mauser. Say hello to Xolo Maridueña, who plays Miguel. And finally, executive producer and Daniel LaRusso himself, it's Ralph Macchio. I'll take more cheering for this group. You know how much I love my big two-part questions, and I got a big one for you to start here. So this show and this franchise had a legacy well before Cobra Kai even began. What did the Karate Kid legacy mean to you at the very beginning, and what does it mean now that you've seen Cobra Kai through 6 seasons?
Wow, great question. Karate Kid was always, for me, was very protective of it. From day one, what we were able to, so blessed to be able to create back in 1983 and onward. When I met John, Josh, and Hayden, I had gone through a few folks pitching me ideas that were kind of one-off bad ideas, but I had the Harold and Kumar and Hot Tub Time Machine guys that were going to convince me that this was the way to go, and they did. I was very protective. I mean, what it meant to me is kind of never losing sight of the themes, the source, the Miyagi-ism, or Miyagi verse, and the Pat Morita, and that kind of soulful magic, that secret sauce of the original film, and what it means to me now at this point after 65 episodes. I think what you just saw, credit to everyone on the stage, but certainly to John, Josh, and Hayden, and the great William Zabka. Let's give it up right now. They delivered on that promise. It felt like a great 80s Karate Kid movie seen through a Cobra Kai lens, and that's really a credit, and I'm super, super proud of how we landed the show.
You should be. John, Josh, and Hayden, I'll build on that with the three of you, and I kind of said this a little when I introed the panel earlier. I think you've done the best of both worlds. You've made a show that is incredibly satisfying to people who have been fans of the Karate Kid since day one, but you've also created a show that has broadened the fan base and basically allowed every generation out there to enjoy the same thing together. And give you a two-part question about that as well. What are some things you guys kept in mind from day one that teed you up for success in that respect? But then can you also walk us through some lessons you learned along the way in terms of delivering both?
Well, it started off with that intent. When we had our very first pitch meetings, when we went around town to all the streaming platforms, we talked about this as a show that people from 7 to 70 were going to love. And it was something that we knew that people like us who grew up with the Karate Kid and were giant fans of Daniel and Gianni and Kreese and Ali and that whole group, that we knew that we were gonna hit the bullseye for them. But beyond that, it was important to us for a new generation to fall in love with these new Karate Kids in the same ways that we fell in love with the Karate Kids back when we were young. So that was something that we kept front of mind when pitching, when writing, when making the show, when casting. It was finding people who the audience was going to fall in love with the same way that we fell in love with the actors back then.
And the second part is lessons learned that you don't have enough hours in the day to deliver upon the vision for a continuation of the Karate Kid without making every sacrifice possible, both at the script stage, at the production stage, at the editorial stage. We write, in a heartfelt, there are a million hours in every day and the sun never sets mentality, and that's not always the case. Production sometimes, hits you in the face with, you have 4 hours at this location before it turns back over into an actual chop shop. And these guys can't be beating the crap out of each other when that happens. So you have the realities of making a TV show that has to stick and move. And in there, you make your peace with where art ends and where reality begins. And we fight for art, and we push our cast, we push all our department heads, and art has mostly won out on this show. But there are plenty of moments to look back on and you go, I just wish we had just a little more time.
You say that, and I've been saying this since the very beginning of the show's run. Like, I see every resource you have on that screen always, and also all the heart and effort you all put in. This kind of builds on some of the points you just made. I'll ask my 4 stars here this particular question, because you made a show that is wildly entertaining, but it's also something that really means something to a lot of people and has truly made a difference in a lot of lives out there. So can you maybe recall the first moment when you realized Cobra Kai was something that meant something to people on that deep level? Your work meant something on that level.
When we moved over to Netflix, it was around the time of COVID. So anytime anyone would go out, we would wear really thick masks. My hair was a mess. I hadn't cut it in 4 or 5 months. And people were recognizing me somehow. And it was just oh my God, this is really means something to people. And I think that's just that's a dream come true as an actor, to be a part of something that so many people enjoy, that you enjoy making. And I couldn't ask for a better group of people. It's great. 7 years well spent. It was great.
I feel like we all knew coming into the series that the Karate Kid meant so much to so many people, and I think for me at least that put that pit in my stomach of don't mess it up. But I think the really cool and special thing was that it felt like we lived in this bubble where Ralph and Billy just welcomed us in we felt like family right away, and I think it felt like this special thing that we all made together, and we're holding hands. It was a really cool craft project, and then I knew it was going out into the world, but I think I'm just I didn't fully realize until the first moments that people came up and shared with me. And I think the thing that I always get really excited to hear is the connections that it's made between different people and their families, the people who come to me and say, this brought me and my dad together, or this brought me and my sister closer, or this is the thing that we talk about, this is our version of the dinner table conversation, is sitting together and watching this. And trying not to get all emotional, but I think that has been the through line even to now that is the thing that I take away from it.
Ken or Xolo, you want to add anything?
Mary said it better than me.
Mary is always so eloquent and
Mary just
passionate.
doesn't shut up. It's okay, I know.
You need to answer before Mary, because Mary always has the answer. I recently had somebody who was, I think in their late 50s, early 60s, that was I've not talked to my dad in probably 40 years. And we started watching Cobra Kai, and for some reason I felt like I needed to reach out to him, and we both happened to be watching it, and I don't know how much longer he's going to be alive, but we have a relationship now because of the Robby and the Gianni relationship, or because of the Miguel and the Gianni relationship. And it's crazy how much heart and connection it makes between just human beings, and it's super cool to see and super special to be a part of.
It's a good follow-up to Mary right there, Tanner.
High five.
Xolo, do you dare?
No other question? Okay. I think the first moments that my parents were really excited about getting the opportunity to audition for this, so that definitely raised the bar for okay, this is serious.
Don't disappoint mom.
And then I think, like Mary was saying, being in this bubble and hearing our crew, it was my first time working on a really long format show where I was kind of eye to eye with everyone, and getting to hear from our crew how positive the experience was and how
they were anticipating the release of it, that's how I knew we had something really special. And then getting to go outside of that bubble and meet people out in person. I mean, I was just a 16, 17-year-old kid. So all of my interactions were usually pretty positive. And to this day, everyone that approaches, you brought it up so perfectly. Like, my favorite part of the show is the fact that parents and children and vice versa can watch the shows together. And there's so little shows, projects that I can think of that actually happens, and that both people are feeling fulfilled and all that. And that's, yeah, there's no greater gift.
Dude, you kept the bar so high. All you hit Mary levels, I promise. Don, I can ask you a very similar question. One of my absolute favorite things about shows and films is when one inspires a viewer to do something. And I've had that with The Karate Kid. I did karate as a kid because I loved that movie so much. And now we have so many other people that are seeing your work in this show, and they're going out and studying karate. So what does it mean to you to see so many people inspired by what you're doing?
I mean, I think it's an honor. To be honest with you, it's a really full circle. Joked with Ralph about this when I first met him, and I said, it's because of you I joined martial arts. So to be here, to be on the set, be on the stage here with these guys, have worked with these guys for the last 3 seasons, and to have this accomplishment, it's surreal. It's a dream come true. It really is. And now there's a whole new. One of the most special things about The Karate Kid was you saw Daniel LaRusso. And you just said, martial arts is for everybody. It's not for the Billy or the Johnny Lawrences of the world. It's not for the jocks. It's for everyone. Everyone can do martial arts. Martial arts is so much more than just physical traits. It's characteristics. It's humanity. It's what these guys have put on stage, on film. And it truly is an honor to be here with a representation of humanity, people, martial arts. And so to be able to have for other young people like myself, the 8-year-old Don Lee, watching the Miguels, the Robbys, the Hawks, Pioneer Brothers, the Demetri, Horse. And I've always told you about this. Gianni, I will say this right now, is one of the most talented people on the stage right here. He really is. All these guys here work their asses off and train hard. And so I think it's awesome for them to have their own, icons that they want to be inspired by. And I've seen a lot of martial arts schools have grown because of the show. And because, I feel like a lot of more female students want to join martial arts because of the Samanthas, because of the Tories. And I think when I go back to the karate school, everyone's like, man, I love Samantha, or I love Tori, I relate, or I love Samantha because of her nail polish. And I'm like, something I really didn't think about, but I'm like, okay, great, it's a thing.
I did, I thought
it's a thing, it really is. I'm like, wow, okay, great, I didn't think of that, but that exists. So I think it's super cool too, and it's also, the funny thing is people may say on the stage, you've taught a lot of martial arts to everyone that's here, but the thing is that they've all taught me how to be a better human and understand life and just the whole creativity process of things. So you guys are also my teachers, so you're my senseis, so thank you.
You're gonna make us cry.
Yeah.
I feel like I keep wanting to jump to things that happen in the finale, but I also do want to touch on the overall journey you've all had with this show. John, Josh, and Hayden, I'll start with you because it's a really special and I guess sadly a kind of rare thing in this industry for a show to not only get 6 seasons, but see itself through to its natural conclusion. And it was just making me wonder just to hear a little bit about how maybe that roadmap evolved. Can you kind of walk us through what your game plan was day one and tell us what it was like either sticking to that roadmap or maybe evolving it so that you could get the amount of time that you wanted?
That first season we had, it was like a movie in our minds. We knew exactly how we were going to end with Kreese setting up a season 2. And we knew deep into the future, we wanted Gianni and Kreese to ultimately reconcile and that character to be redeemed, and Gianni and Daniel to come together and end the rivalry. We wanted Ali to come in. We didn't know exactly how things were going to unfold, but we really felt we had a lot more fun to play with after that first season. When the first season came out and was a success on YouTube, we didn't realize that we were going to be on Netflix and it was going to be even bigger success. But at that juncture, we really felt like, hey, you know what? This show works. So how do we how do we milk this in a way? Because when you have something that's successful, that with a great cast, it's like you don't want that to end. You do want it to go on, but we're our toughest critics, and we know that the moment that the story starts to repeat or you start to go to too ridiculous places, the whole thing ends. This was a real serialized story that we were telling. So we're like, how long do we have? And we felt back then, if you look at some of those early interviews, we were like, I don't know, 6 or 7 seasons. We really felt we had, a lot of fun in store. We knew we had Terry Silver in our back pocket to just throw in like a grenade, changing everything. And I'd also say along the way, there were a couple things like You're the Best Around as a song or The Fly with Chopsticks that were just these nostalgia weapons that we had, and we're like, don't use them yet. Like, let's find the right place for them. So every season we attacked with, hey, let's tell something fresh, but we also have some fun stuff to the past to bring in. And it got to that place where, we're like right before season 6, and we said 6 or 7, and it turned out to be around 6.5. And so, we just made sure that we had the best, for last. And we really felt by the end of it, it was just amazing for it all to come full circle.
You use those nostalgia weapons well. I'm a big believer that anybody looking to continue a franchise out there should look at this show as a blueprint. Yeah, we can clap for that too.
You're the best.
Bring it on.
You guys are. You really are.
Ralph, I want to come back to the very beginning of playing Daniel in this show. I've gotten in the habit of asking this question a lot because I love an actor's experience kind of having an aha moment with a character, but I feel like usually I'm asking it to someone jumping into a brand new role. Here, you're jumping back into a role that you've played, but at a completely different stage of life. So it's making me wonder, in those earlier episodes, did you have a moment either in prep or on set when you did something and thought to yourself, like, I get who the Cobra Kai version of Daniel LaRusso needs to be?
Yeah, good question. All your questions are good, but that's, she makes us think, folks.
That's right.
There was, stepping into Daniel LaRusso 34 years later it's almost like playing a different character on one sense, because his life had happened, wisdom supposedly was gained until I read them, he acted like a teenager here and there, but it helped our narrative. So the thing is, it felt like it was a long time ago, but then there were moments I would actually play things. I'd recall sort of taking those steps as the teenage Daniel LaRusso, even just when I peek into the Cobra Kai dojo. And I knew when I did that back in 1983, and when I come in early in the series to walk in to first see Johnny Lawrence for the first time, at least in that dojo, there were some conscious choices made to sort of mirror that, even though so much life had gone on. And then in playing those moments, that scene itself in the dojo in episode 2 of season 1 was really, we go back to the pinnacle of the moment. Billy and I talk about it all the time, like that there was silent conversations going on, and the scene just worked, and everyone was there excited, and we felt we had something we didn't even know we had. And that was really galvanized. Wow, this is going to go someplace. The Cobra Kai's Daniel LaRusso, as I call him, that certainly early on was sometimes challenging for me, and we'd always talk it through with the guys, because I knew I had to take one for the team often and throughout the series, Daniel had to kind of take one for the team at times to show Johnny Lawrence's growth, because that's always been the trajectory of this series. It is Johnny's redemption story. So, it was pretty early on, like saying I kicked his face in front of a bunch of people with a smirk on my face. I knew I had to take one for the team to celebrate. I love that moment. And but it worked. It paid off, and there were tough times. John, Josh, and Hayden, we'd have many conversations where I was less than completely thrilled with where Daniel was, say season 2, 3, outside of my field trip episodes, when there was no Johnny, when I could, tie into the full LaRusso. And then it was always about where we were going. They always assured me where it was landing. And it was about trust. And the truth is, at that point, even through those days that it was a little cloudy for me, I saw how everything was connecting and working, and how it was next level to have a show that was nostalgic yet relevant and brought 4 generations of people a pleasure in different ways, and how unique that was. It was about trusting it. And it's not always easy to trust when you're as protective as I am, or Billy is. And so it was about where we landed. And I called them, I spoke to John right away when I saw this episode 15, or the last 3. And I just said, that's it. That's it. It lands exactly where it should. So I know it's a long answer, but it's been a long journey.
It has.
There's so much inspiration on this stage, what I get from these young actors, and I never expected that. And that's a big part of what used to drive me every day, is how inspired by their work I was. And that because those moments were real and truthful amid the snakes in the dealership and the boats blowing up and everything else. It's still, they always grounded it.
We never found that snake. We never.
That's true. Good point. Good point. It may be here right now.
But, and I learned a lot as an actor. They taught, John, Josh, and Hayden, this experience, even I've been doing this since I started working in 1979 as an actor, and I learned so much making this show and understanding that you need that to breathe and you need to fall to come back. And obviously you need to have flaws that maybe even go outside of the realm of where you thought a character would be, as long as you know what the end game was. So you learn every day, man. And boy, am I blessed to be on this stage with all these people.
Journey paid off big time. Still can't believe how well this show sticks the landing. I'm going to lean into something Ralph said for the 4 of you now, because over the course of this show's run, I feel like a lot of times in our interviews, it's been emphasized how receptive John, Josh, and Hayden were to your feelings about your characters. So can you each pinpoint a time when you felt the need to speak up about something regarding your character? They heard you and embraced it, and now we see it in the finished show.
Do we have to do this in front of them?
I think Tina has something to say.
In charge.
I know mine. It was season 2. It was the school fight, because I came to you guys, and after I read the last scene of where I kick you off the banister, I was like, whoa. We have spent 2 seasons making this guy a good guy, and you're just gonna go all out, just killer mode on this, on him basically kicking off, his dad's #1 student, even though, and I came to you guys and I was like, yeah. But I came to you guys and I was like, hey, I really love where Robby is right now. He's really redeemed himself and become a good person. And I would rather not. And they were like, well, it's a very important part of the story. And I was like, okay, fair enough. I hear you. Is there any way we can make sure that we're looking at this and it at least seems like an accident?
Not save Miguel, but
yeah, no.
Yeah, we're still let Miguel fall.
Why does he have to fall off?
And I talked to you guys, and we had pulled the stunt team aside and was like, how does this look to make sure that this doesn't completely ruin who you guys have wrote to build up such a likable character at that point? And we said it's probably just as simple as making sure that when he throws that kick, it's a back kick and he doesn't realize where he's kicking. He's mad, he's very upset, and he's there and he's just gonna kick him, and it's just gonna be something that happened. And we had talked about it too. If you go back earlier in that scene between us two where the banister is, you also kicked me against the banister, and it could have just as easily happened to Robby, but it didn't. I'm just saying. Yeah. Miguel could have just been the bad guy and you would have never known, but it's okay.
Tina's off right now.
I'll just say, I think for us, we never viewed any of the characters as bad guys or good guys. Even Terry Silver, at points, we viewed him as, okay, maybe at the very end he's just a bad guy.
Pretty bad.
But I think what we were trying to tell was a human story for all of these characters, and these characters made mistakes at times. And Robby, in that example, had come so far, and that's what was so rough about it. And it was not intentional to kick him off the balcony. He was angry and kicked him, and that's what ended up happening. and then you see Robby's face and Tanner's face of horror and what the hell did I just do, and being scared as a boy again, and running off from there, and you feel the humanity in it. You didn't feel a monster kick a guy off a balcony. You felt a kid make a horrible mistake. You felt
Wrong word.
I'm saying you didn't feel a monster. I think that what our intent was, and what I think Tanner's performance gave, was somebody who made a horrible mistake and was going to have to deal with the repercussions of that mistake in episodes coming up. And that's what, for all of the characters that we're trying, even Ralph, even Daniel,
Ralph says.
even Daniel with Daniel LaRusso. Like, one thing that I would say is, even when you have great mentors in life and you've learned a lot and you know the right thing to do, I'm in my 40s right now, and I make mistakes in life.
He punches Hayden in the face all the time.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. But I was going to say, we all in life, people of all ages, know better and still make mistakes in life,
right.
which is why we felt it was possible for any of the characters to make certain mistakes along the way.
Our characters never almost killed someone, though, so I don't know. Mistakes is a strong word.
I do feel like, though, from an actor's perspective, I was so grateful for all that I've learned on this show, because Josh, John, and Hayden, and all of our writers and everybody who has made this show happen have taken the time to, at the very least, explain the why that helps make sense of the choices that feel out of control sometimes as an actor, and it has brought so much peace in that way. But their belief in us and their support and their willingness to listen, I think all of us grew so much from the process of having the confidence it's instilled in all of us as creatives. I'll forever be grateful for.
Sometimes you don't know what you can do until you do it. Sometimes they write scripts that you're like, I don't know if this is right, and then we end up filming it and it feels great. And you're like, wow.
Yeah, they believed in us even when we weren't sure we could accomplish the thing.
Exactly.
They're also very approachable. I mean, this was like the first biggest thing I'd done. And there was the Hawk and Demetri beef for the first time. It was like season 3? Was it?
Season 2.
Season 2?
Season 2.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You kicked him into
Yeah. But okay, so in season 3 though, they were still beefing.
Yeah.
And I was really struggling because sometimes Demetri would push back, but then other times he would be scared of Hawk. And so I remember we actually sat down during lunch one time, and you guys sat me through it and kind of helped me figure out what was going on in the world. And it was really great. I think these guys, they do a great job. They care a lot about the material, and I think it shows. It's great.
I mean, the last thing we want, is to come on set and for somebody to say, "Where do you want me to stand? What do you want me to say?" Okay. But you don't want somebody to say, "I'm not going to stand there, and I'm not going to say that." You want something in between. It needs to be a dialogue. The characters are as much theirs as ours in the writers' room, and even more so theirs as they embody them and make choices. And we yes and each other. They do something, we take that into the writers' room and say, "Ooh, they're doing something with that. Let's evolve that. Ooh, I didn't see that relationship actually having that, that color to it until we saw it on its feet." And it becomes this, this moving organism that kind of belongs to everybody. So yeah, we love it when, they read the scripts and we get hey, can we chat about, this scene or this, motion, or because they're not in those, endless discussions in the writer's room about why we landed on that. And sometimes it's walking them through the game that ended up there, and also giving them a little peek as to where we're going. That can, and sometimes you want to skip ahead to know how to play something, and sometimes you don't, and we respect that as well, because everybody has their, I only want to know where they are now, and sometimes if you want to know where they're going, I'll give you the, the cheat code.
Well, we know where they went now, so let's lean into that finale. Don, I'll come your way first. I feel like this question kind of applies to literally every fight in this entire show, but I am curious as it pertains to the Gianni Sensei Wolf fight. What was it like putting something together like that, where it is entertaining and exhilarating to watch, but it also still reflects the entirety of not only Gianni's journey in this particular show, but in the franchise overall?
I mean, obviously it's an honor. It's being able to come back to help physically tell that story that these guys over here have written for Gianni's comeback and for him to have that vindication. You wanted to keep it authentic. I mean, the action's in the writing. These guys write such an awesome script. I'm not just saying that because I'm up here. It just makes my job easier and helping that, being a fan of it, and really being authentic to the fact that you have, you know, Johnny Lawrence in his age, you have Sensei Wolf in his age, everyone in the audience knows who's younger, who's older, who is a younger, faster killer, and that's Sensei Wolf, and that's what they made. They made this guy to be that, and to have that story of just, you know, the mind game that Sensei Wolf played. He didn't want to just beat Johnny, he wanted to embarrass him. And so to have that is so powerful, and you have that scene in the locker room before they even go out, he wants to break his soul in front of the Valley. It's not just about winning, it's about breaking them. And obviously he didn't. And so to be able to tell that story, to have classic moments, I was just in the back room talking to the guys, there was a shot in the scene that to me was so pivotal as a martial arts person, as someone who does fights, watches fights. There was a movement where this whole season was about Johnny finding balance and not to charge. And when Daniel lets him know, do not charge. And there was that moment, this leg shot that took, I'll let these guys talk about it because they're the ones who directed it, and it was a moment that was very difficult to get, but I'm so glad they got it, is to tell that story of him making the decision not to go forward, to pull back, to do the sweep the leg, which we all like sweep the leg, we thought for sure he's gonna win, to be able to go classic Johnny to do a kip up, and to end it on such a classic move as a spinning back fist. It's not so much what's fancy about martial arts that wins a fight, it's about the technique that's behind it. That, to me, that story, you guys nailed it. And I'm so proud and honored to be a part of that. They should tell you that what happened in that scene, because I mean, on that day, I was like, wow.
Well, I mean, the key to that last fight was you wanted the drama. You wanted just, Johnny is an underdog again. Somehow we had to find a way, because Johnny's had a bunch of fights over the years, but we wanted to put him right back in the underdog spot, and that locker room scene with Wolf right before the fight kind of, you know, breaks him and gets in his head. And so part of it is the drama of the fight and making sure Wolf feels unbeatable and Johnny's off his game so that, you know, Daniel can come in as a sensei and give the words of wisdom. And the fun part was Daniel giving the Cobra Kai words of wisdom. And so you think, okay, well, Johnny needed that Cobra Kai, and on the show, we promote Cobra Kai. That's what it is. We didn't want it where Cobra Kai, that sucks. Don't use that. Just do Miyagi-Do. So it was really important to have like awesome Cobra Kai style aggressive fighting. But at the end of the day, we knew that it was all about balance. That was Johnny's story. And we wanted to show that Johnny had listened a little bit. And so in that final point, he knows, like, you know, I'm not just going to run into this like I did back in 1984. I'm going to let him come to me and then let things play out. And so and that was the fun of the whole series, is figuring out the style of fighting. And, you know, why are these moves related to the character and where they're going? They're angry, they're aggressive, or they're controlled and imbalanced, and you're just seeing in their eyes like a level of confidence. And so those are the little touches that I think separate this martial arts from just like awesome spectacle martial arts, which is amazing, like some of the Bruce Lee stuff. This is like, it's really a philosophy mixed in with the martial arts that kind of makes the story of the fight that much better.
And the one thing that, you know, Don, I think, was alluding to also was like the close-ups of Johnny's feet there. That was something that was really important to get, but we had very little time to shoot what we did, as like always. And it was one of those things that you're getting the pressure to end your day, or just, you don't need that. And we were like, we need that. That's a huge part of telling this emotional story. This was not just a Johnny Lawrence victory. This was a Johnny Lawrence and Daniel LaRusso joint victory together. This was Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do coming together to win this fight on those red mats from 1984.
So effective. I have so many follow-up questions. We have limited time. I'm going to try to squeeze in maybe two more before I hit some audience questions we have here. I'll stick with the fights. Xolo, I'll come your way with this question because it's your fight with Axel, and there's one particular part of that fight that I'm just utterly obsessed with. It's the part of the fight where it's intercutting with some of his past memories, and just like how beautifully that builds to the point where like he earns that win in that moment. So I am curious, what is it like for you preparing for a scene like that? Are you actually taking a trip down memory lane in order to bring all those memories back for you in the moment?
That's a great question, Perri. Not really, actually. I think that was definitely, for me personally, like, Dawn and Ken definitely, they had the whole thing mapped out. I was learning it like a new fight. I wasn't playing the the flashback in my head while we were fighting. I was just as not surprised, but I guess just as awestruck watching the final product and seeing, oh my gosh, they really, truly, everything that Gianni's saying in that moment, the highs, the lows, everything, it really stuck to me, I guess. It's unfathomable to think, for me at least at the time, that Miguel Diaz could be a world champion. I was like, that's crazy. But I realized it was less about him being the best fighter and him using these values, these life lessons that he's learned over these past years, and executing it to the best of his ability. And that sometimes that's enough.
Yeah, that was truly, for me, that was truly one of the highlights, just in the story structure and going back in the through line of Miguel, who was, always described by Hayden as the millennial Daniel LaRusso, and from day one, my first meeting with them, and then seeing that in the editing, the work in the editing room, and the script into the editing room, that's really, and the music, those are the really special cinematic moments of a show that is very often feel like we're making it run and gun. But that was, that's just a great piece of cinema within a, TV show.
Well, it's one thing to write in a giant paragraph, He does the kick that reminds us of, fighting Hawk in the Woods. He does the spin that reminds us of and it's all written in 12 neat lines. And then, he disappears into Don's dojo, with Ken Bearfield for, a few days. And then on the day, I have, Don on one shoulder and Ken on the other tapping me. That's the Woods fight right there. Okay, watch this. Nope, now what's that? That's the school fight right there. And they had taken it so to heart, like the Bible, like we have to deliver upon everything here to give them what they need at the end to make that work. So we had it, so you're able to literally visually see him start the move, see it happen, see him finish the move, and bring the whole show full circle in that fight.
So good. So, and also just because we don't have time to talk about all this, I love the fact that you have a winner, but then you also manage to show other ways of winning in life that don't necessarily culminate in getting a trophy. The fact that you're all able to emphasize that and earn those kinds of things is, just feels like a very important thing to have in a show. So we've got 2 questions here from Paley members. First one is from Peter Sepanick, who wants to know, John, Josh, and Hayden, what do you truly think the secret is to making a show like this work so incredibly well?
Still casting. No.
Tell the secret, Hayden.
Just the latest update of ChatGPT.
Okay.
It's a combination of that and.
Someone cut his mic.
This can only happen. This can't happen with a lot of properties. It happened to be we're enormous fans of this franchise. Happen to be of filmmaker age. We happen to have stars from the original movie that look great. It's all the stars aligned. I'm serious. If Ralph looks like crap, there's no the guy's looking great, and so but it's just the love of we know that there's other franchises out there that have done this, and there's filmmakers who love those franchises. And Mark Hamill looks good, but no Zapka, no. But it's just you have to have a connection to these characters and want to tell a new story. We never wanted to do a remake. Karate Kid exists. I don't need to see another one. But if you could give me those feels, maybe a little music, maybe some special moves and stuff like that. I like that, and I don't have kids like these guys, but there's the kid in me that wants to see that. I think that was the secret, is we wrote for our middle-aged selves and the kid in us, and so it worked for everyone.
All right, our second question is from Susie Davenport. It's for the cast here. How much training did you have before you auditioned for the roles that required karate? And look at you now.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's well known that have always been the least athletic person I've known. But I think that was the kind of the magic of it is that, funny enough, actually, that my character was the only one who was supposed to have had any karate training beforehand, so double the pressure in that sense. But I think the magic of it was that we were learning all of these lessons along with our characters as we went, and I think the really fun part of it, for me at least, is the takeaway of walking away from having now trained for 7 years and really these last few seasons, like buckling down, taking it into my personal life, letting myself fully commit to the world of martial arts and letting that part of me that had been so committed to the idea that I was the least athletic person that I knew go and really just going for it and trusting that, all of the right elements were there, was that I got to learn in real time with Samantha the life lesson that the whole point of, I'm gonna try not to cry, okay? No. The whole point of learning all these lessons and learning martial arts, for me, my takeaway anyway, is that the whole point was learning the life lessons of inner strength, a sense of self, a sense of direction, learning respect, learning dedication to something, learning to not listen to the voice in your head that tells you it's, give up, it's too hard, and letting all of those lessons come in, permeate my life, and then figuring out that the whole point in applying those lessons is really not having to use the fighting portion. The fighting portion is beautiful and wonderful and a great way to get to know your body and your physical strength, but that the lesson I took away from it was that that's the tool to help you learn the lesson. That's the book to help you learn the takeaway in the story.
Beautiful answer as always. I did want to make sure to end our conversation on this particular question for you, Ralph, kind of to bookend everything. Mary, you've answered this before, and surprise, surprise, you did it beautifully. And I'm very curious to hear your perspective on this, given your journey with this franchise. Going into the making of this series, what did Cobra Kai as a dojo mean to you and stand for to you? And now walking away from the series, what does Cobra Kai now mean to you?
Wow. Well, it's interesting when I first sat down with John, Josh, and Hayden in New York okay, I'll hear this out. And I had no idea. I just knew they wanted to do something with the Karate Kid franchise. And they led off, first Hayden led off with the word bullying. I said, okay, that's good. Thematically, we're in. He goes, and I don't know which was the next one. He said, so the name of the show is Cobra Kai. I almost got up and left. So I said, all right, listen. And you're going to play a car salesman. And I was like, whoa. I said, and now they needed to course correct really quickly, and they obviously did. So initially, Cobra Kai was just like, oh, it's those guys from the Karate Kid. Always for me was Miyagi. He's the heart, the soul. The performance by Pat Morita was the secret sauce that made that movie more than just another 80s teen film. So Cobra Kai was always just like, oh yeah, that's the bad guys in the movie. I never thought of it from the perspective of how John, Josh, and Hayden thought of it. And at that time, I had just seen the movie Creed, because timing is so important with these things. And that film was the way to get into the Rocky universe without doing Rocky 7 from another perspective. So these things started coming together. So Cobra Kai was always, oh, they're the bad guys from the movie that I'm going to be carrying around for the rest of my life. Now, going through this whole scenario, going through all the lessons learned and the writing taught and all the generational aspects of it, if they pitched to me at that table after mentioning the name of it and that I was going to be a car salesman and say I kicked his face and all this other stuff, and they said, and you're going to be in a black gi and you're going to punch Johnny in the face and season, it probably may not have worked out as well. What happened is we started talking about these characters and these guys and Johnny's son and Daniel training Johnny's estranged son and Miguel and Samantha and what she meant to. Now I started seeing the longevity of the show more And so through the journey today, what I think of Cobra Kai, having gone through it and put on the dark gi and said, you know, kick the shit out of this pussy or whatever I said. Or whatever. I mean, that's the dialogue. You just heard it. Right? I'm just repeating. It's okay, sometimes we need to take that path to come back around to understand the balance. I'm Miyagi-Do for life. I will never say anything differently. So I've learned to accept the fruits of dabbing my toe in the Cobra Kai world, and I'm proud and grateful and thrilled that I have. So
Beautiful answer. Miyagi-Do forever, but you teed Gianni and Cobra Kai up to be their best possible selves.
Right. They needed each other to be victorious, and that's kind of sweet.
Same with every character on the show. It really is something else. I'm going to say a big, big congratulations. Truly, it meant what I said at the very beginning. You made a series that is undeniably one of my favorite series of all time. You stick the landing so beautifully, and also you are all lovely people. Watching you interact with the fan community is really an extra special layer to what you created. So thank you for being here and sharing some of your series with us today.
Thank you, Perri. You're the best.
I think we get up. I think we get up.
Great job as always.